I fell in love with a pathological liar. Uprooted my life, and moved countries for her only to he cheated on and abandoned abroad. The full story will come, and it is a doozy, but right now I am traumatized, alone, heartbroken, and far from home. I repressed so many red flags and warning signs, and trusted her above my better judgment. All of that resulted in me being called at 6:30 a.m. to pick her up from her affair. Her smell when she got in the car is seared into my brain. She never admitted it, and only once I snooped her phone did it all come out. Who knows how many times this has happened before. Nearly 4 years of love and sacrifices, including shutting down a business and moving to a new country so she could pursue her studies there, and this is the respect she shows me as her final act of our relationship. How do I begin to pick up the pieces of my shattered life? Redditor's reactions update after. Redditor 1, one shard at a time. I'm not being flippant. This is the only way. Figure out what you need to do immediately. Whether it's leave, making arrangements to leave, or simply moving one of you out of the shared bedroom until you figure out which shard needs to be picked up next. You shut down a business and moved countries. You can absolutely do this. Op answer, thank you. I will believe you that I am capable. And one shard at a time it is. Redditor 2, ghost if you haven't already. Find a new place to stay and cut all contact immediately. Preferably without her knowing. Begin the Grey Rock and 180 methods. Start reading some books. Lots of chump lady. Leave a cheater, gain a life, cheating in a nutshell, and the body keeps the score. Also read No More Mr. Nice Guy. Work to take the negative emotional energy and pour it into positive experiences. Find positive ways to cope, working out, yoga, journaling, or something else. Fight for the life you want rather than the life you currently have. Redditor 3, first of all, dump her. That is the most important thing to do. Then move on from her and go to full North Carolina. I don't know if you married to her, but if you are, consult a lawyer to see what options are, and if you feel comfortable with them, file for divorce. Op answer, dumped, fortunately not married. Very minimal contact and going full no contact on Wednesday after I read her a letter I wrote for closure. Update, the full story of how I chased love across the globe, only to be manipulated into chauffeuring my partner to and from her affair. Buckle up, this is going to be a long one, but I hope my story can help someone out here to avoid the same mistakes that has led me down a years-long path of deceit and left me all alone in another country. It all began on a mountain. Through a couple friends, I 26 meters met someone 23F that we will refer to as Z. She knew a lot about me before we met, and we seemed to have everything in common. We instantly clicked and shared some flirtatious moments, but I had a gig at the ski resort. I owned my own business where I freelanced as a marketer, so I went to sleep early and didn't partake in much partying. After the weekend, she slid into my DMs and we connected on our love for dogs. We later met up with those same friends and a couple others back in the town we all live near, and continued to click and grow our flirtation. While leaving that night, she asked me to come back to her place, and I declined because I needed to attend a family event the next morning. That said, it was clear at this point where this was going. The next weekend, I drove an hour up to her place where we were planning to have dinner and a drink and get to know each other. She immediately asked if we could just go to her room, because her roommates would be back soon, so we get set up in there, put on a movie and proceed to not watch a second of it. We talk non-stop until 4 a.m., when she literally says duck it before ripping her shirt off and mounting me. It seemed that this was the spark of a serious connection that could grow into something real, but there was one problem. She was in her final year of uni and was not a citizen of my home country where we were living, so we both knew she would have to move away in 6 months. This is where the first major red flag incident arose. She asked that we keep us hooking up a secret, especially from our close friends that introduced us. She said that she doesn't want to have to explain things or justify starting a fling before moving. She also told me that they had said a lot of really mean things about me, and told her to avoid me. I obliged, thinking I had just been backstabbed by one of my closest childhood friends. To be honest, to this day I still don't know the truth of what was said and what was used to manipulate me from telling him the truth. This nearly ended one of my closest friendships. The next weekend we took a trip together to the mountains again. We hung out, watched musicals, and had lots of time. Things seemed absolutely electric and we both began to really fall for each other. At that point, we decided to become exclusive, and just take things one day at a time in terms of her moving. The following weekend I had another work trip to a ski resort and my friend tagged along. During the drive, he told me that Zed had hooked up with another guy the weekend she invited me to hers. Zed had told me a lot about this guy, and I knew they were close friends. So the next time we saw each other, I asked her about it and she told me she had a dark history with him, which I will keep to myself as to not speak on a very triggering subject and out of respect for her and other victims. She said the night after she had invited me up to her place, she had time with him, but that it was a one-time thing to let go of something as she was falling for me. Let's pause for a second here and dig into a bit of context and background. Zed had been in an abusive relationship before me with someone she describes as a narcissist. She has expressed that she was manipulated by this guy in various ways, including stalking and threats of suicide when they broke up. I will remain empathetic and believe her that this is real trauma she carries and that some of her actions may be a defense mechanism or trauma response as a young victim. I tried to proceed with as much compassion and understanding as possible, and excused many of her actions as just somebody who's been broken and is trying to glue back the pieces. Over the next few weeks we continued to get to know each other and grow a deeper connection. I drove up to Zed around 4 nights a week and we spent night after night just chatting for hours. It was never about the time, but there was a lot of it in the first few weeks. This will be important later. I knew she was going out the other nights, but never thought anything of it and trusted her. One agreement expectations that she had established and I agreed with was that we would always let each other know when we got home safely if we were out at night. One night she was at a house party including with and never told me she got home. The next day, we had a discussion and she said drove her home but nothing happened and she just went and passed out. She also shared her location with me on Find My Friends, so that I would know she was home safe if this happened again. I didn't ask her to do this, but it did lower my suspicions. This is when major red flag event 2 happened. Zed tells me that she is going to go to therapy that day, and we call and talk on the phone as she drives to his office. Once she gets there, we hang up. Out of curiosity and a bit of suspicion lingering from the before, I check her location and she is not at a therapist's office, she is at A's apartment. I texted her telling her that I see she's lying and that we are done. She immediately calls me bawling her eyes out while sitting in his bathroom apologizing and begging me to let her come explain things. I say yes and we met up and went for a walk. She explained that she is having tons of emotions regarding moving and her life in that country coming to an end. She mentions how A was struggling and needed her to talk to. She told me that she loved me for the first time, and was willing to do anything to regain my trust. Naively, I believed her, forgave her, and we continued our relationship. She graduated, I began to develop a relationship with her parents and siblings, and our friends become awfully suspicious about whether or not we're hooking up. This caused quite a rift in our friendships but also bonded Zed and I together in the lie. I hated the lie, though. Ultimately, it all came out when we showed up to a house party together and Zed took responsibility for asking me to keep things secret. Regardless, we continued to get closer and closer and had more conversations about the prospect of long distance. She got into a master's program abroad and ultimately we decided that we want to at least give a LDR a try. As we approached the end of our time together in the US, one night we went out for some drinks and when we got back, I saw her texting a ton and she had that smile as she was writing something out. I immediately called her out and accuse her of texting A. She denies it at first, but I press and she admits it. She then breaks down and admits that she had strong feelings for him. She said they only ever hooked up 3 times where before she had said 2 but that she had a serious crush on him. She also said that he was a huge D to her though, for example ignoring her at parties and walking away when she would try to talk to him in front of people. It hurt to hear but at this point, I didn't think it was worth ending the relationship. Feelings are complicated and I can't feel insecure about a friendship relationship that started way before I had even met her, and was very complicated and intertwined with her previous trauma. I did make her tell him about me, though. And she did. He apparently broke down and was super confused how she had fallen in love with someone so quickly since this was all happening behind his back, and that she's the only girl he could actually see himself with. Regardless, we spent the last days together trying to just enjoy each other's company. One thing that was obvious to me, though, was that we had stopped having S-time in the months leading up to her leaving. She would always just reject it saying she was too emotional about leaving, or something else. We went from having S-time every time we see each other in the first month to basically not having any S-time at all. Through the years of our relationship, that never changed. In the final year, we maybe had S-time 3 times. She said she has a very low libido, and that S-time hurts. Zed moved abroad, and it was crushing to say goodbye. That said, I had a flight to go see her for a month and then she would come back for a month around Christmas. We FaceTimed daily as we adjusted to long distance and overall made it work. The 7-hour time difference was challenging but we both made sacrifices and prioritized each other. When I visited, the moment of reconnection was magical. We were so happy to see each other again, and we spent a month in a little studio apartment just soaking in each other's company. She was busy studying, and I was continuing to run my business remotely while there. Of course, the time quickly came to an end and we said goodbye once again. Those moments always came with the immense feeling of loss, but we knew we had each other still. She then comes back to my home country for winter break. We stayed at my place originally before heading up to spend the holidays with her family. Before we went, she asks to have a night with her old friend group, including A. I oblige as to not be controlling and understanding she wants to see all of them. That was not a problem with me at all. This is where red flag number 3 begins. She ends up staying over there and the next day said she slept on the couch. Her story later changed to that she was on the couch but then 2 of her friends started having S-time so she went and slept on A's bedroom floor. This story made no sense as those 2 people would never have S-time together and her changing story was very suspicious to me. Regardless, we drove up to be with her family and on the night of my birthday I press her on the strange story. She ended up admitting that they had been sleeping together for years, and that she had serious feelings for him. She said she was so embarrassed that they never talked about it that she repressed it and didn't share it with anyone. I wanted to believe her so bad. She even had her mom talk to me about how hard it is for her to be totally open about certain things due to previous traumas. I don't know what I was thinking at this point, but I forgave her once again. Regardless, we split ways once again and COVID hit. I end up traveling to her and isolating for a while, before having to return due to not having visa. During that visit, we moved into a new apartment and started to build our life together. After I left, we went 8 months before we could reconnect due to lockdowns and travel restrictions. During this time, we talked every day and continued to make sacrifices to stay connected. Here is where major red flag number 4 comes in. She would FaceTime me and tell me she is going to sleep, then an hour or two later she'd call back, clearly intoxicated, and say goodnight one more time. I was suspicious and I didn't engage in the lies. Honestly, I repressed them and basically would just say okay, and was quite retracted. She noticed my changes, but we never had dialogue about what was happening. There was a clear divide building. Fast forward to me finally going back to her and our apartment, and us reconnecting again. We took a long road trip, backpacking trip, and during that, it came out that she had been telling me she was going to sleep, but in reality was calling other guys, including another past fling, and her abusive ex. She was smoking Ed and chatting with one of them, then would call me back to say goodnight again. This caused the largest argument of our relationship up to this point. She told me that it was her way of coping with her extreme anxiety and loneliness. I tried to be empathetic because COVID was hard on everyone. She told me she would start therapy. I forgave her. She did go to therapy, but only 2 or 3 times before stopping. We adopted a cat so that she wouldn't be alone when I wasn't there and as the start of our little family. After that visit, we decided that at this point the only way forward was for me to move there permanently. I shut down my business mostly and enrolled in a master's program at her same university. I left my hometown, family, and friends and moved to her. Our long-distance experience finally comes to a permanent end and we live together full-time. During this time, I struggled. I had lost my closest childhood friend to suicide, lost my family dog, and lost another family member. I was also trying to adapt to a new country where I had no friends or family. Zed has always needed significant support and care for her own mental health. I did most of the cleaning, cooking, dishes, laundry, making sure she stays consistent with personal hygiene, is eating enough and drinking water. I needed to be able to focus on my own struggles though, and I stopped being able to carry the weight of both of our well-beings by myself. I really needed her support like I had supported her. I needed her patience and understanding as I didn't have the same veracity and love for life and adventure that I had always had before. She has made a point of this and how it has made her anxiety worse, so I began listening to her and trying to do better. This is where a downward spiral of events began, along with major red flag number 5. Let me remind everyone of the boundary in our relationship for each other's safety, where we would always let each other know when we left a location and got to our next location when going out at night. She told me she was going out for a ladies' night, and she dressed in a way that she had never dressed like before, basically just a bralette. I don't mind that, and she can wear whatever she is comfortable in. That said, this was new behavior. She has always said clubs make her claustrophobic, and that she doesn't like them. So her dressing this way and clubbing was very strange. She stopped messaging me and I didn't hear from her again until 4:30 a.m. She told me that it was just a circle of her girlfriends making sure no guys came and danced with them, and that her phone died. She broke our boundaries and had never stayed out late like this, especially without informing me that was her plan. To gain forgiveness, she bought a phone battery case and promised me she would not do this again. I forgave her. Let's take another intermission to add more context. Z had come out to me as bi previously, and I have asked numerous times if this is something she needs to explore, and if she would resent me if our relationship held her back from that. She always said no and that we could just role play, use p-iron, etc. for her to explore this part of herself. I happily added this into our bedroom. I told her I am her ally, and I meant it. After that night, Z told me she was hit on, flirted with a girl, and that she told her she had a boyfriend, but that it felt good. This was not a violation of our boundaries as long as she was honest about it. Since that night, there was a continuation in the changes in her behavior, and our mutual friends noticed it as well. She was very interested in partying all of a sudden, which is very new. She also started bringing up the idea of a break, the first time she has ever mentioned that. She said it was because she was having a lot of anxiety around me and that she also would like a bit of space because she wanted to dance with girls, and maybe sleep with girls. I processed this and ended up saying that for me to be okay with it, I would need her to be honest with me once it was over. I didn't want to spend my life creating stories about what happened and would rather just know. I also said that it would be a violation if she slept with any friends. She responded that she actually didn't need a break and that maybe one day we would incorporate a threesome. This was all very distressing as I felt her pulling away and pushing our boundaries, but I was thankful for her seemingly honest dialogue about what she was feeling. My visa is nearing its end, so for me to live in country indefinitely, I am applying for funding for research that I genuinely want to pursue. During all of these events, I was working my ass off to build an impressive project, as funding is highly competitive. I spent an entire week working morning until night, and on Friday I submitted it. I texted her asking for a date night to celebrate and let me relax. She declined and said she had a movie night planned with one of her girlfriends. She proposed Saturday night instead. I was okay with that. We took a shower together as she got ready for her movie night, and had a heavy make-out session in the shower. She then asked for me to drop her off and I obliged. We kissed goodbye, and I headed home. She texted me throughout the evening until about 11:30. Where she says we're going to watch another movie. I said have fun and asked her what one, and got no response, all night. She never came home, and so I began frantically calling and texting her from 4:06 a.m. Finally I heard from her, as she asked me to come pick her up. I do, and when she gets in the car, she had such a distinct smell. One that is now steered into my memory forever. She told me she's so sorry, that she just fell asleep. I told her that I am exhausted and frustrated, so I don't want to talk about it yet. We went home and she crawled into bed. As I sat and evaluated what happened, I got a bad feeling in my gut. I went and looked at her phone, and there was a note open that reads, "I have to be honest with you about my situation. My boyfriend and I are on a 1-month break so we can just be single." I called her out on it and she tells me that she had a crush on her female friend that she was watching the movie with, but that the girl isn't even into girls. She told me she wrote it as a fantasy and hit of adrenaline but that she never showed anyone. She promised me with everything she had that she just fell asleep on a beanbag. I didn't know what to believe and we were on the rocks hard. We decided we would take time to reflect and evaluate the relationship from that day Saturday until the next Wednesday, when we would sit and have a serious talk. During that time, we went out together and lived our lives fairly normally. When Wednesday came around, Zed asked to start and read a letter saying her anxiety has become so bad that she needs to be single to work on yourself. She also said she wasn't sure if she is gay, and needs space to figure that out. That she can't pursue something intimate outside of our relationship, while still with me. I was shocked and crushed but also agreed that something was very wrong, so we broke up mutually and amicably. She moved out and into her friend's house, and I started informing my loved ones. This was all crushing as I had invested so much into her and into this relationship, and these events blindsided me. I told her how proud I was of her for putting her mental health first, and being honest about it, though. We continued to have respectful dialogue over the next few days, and the following Saturday we met up to get out in the sun and do something fun together, as friends. Afterwards, she came back to our place to see our cat and shower. She told me that she had written me a letter that is her being more honest with me than she ever has been with anyone, and more honest with herself than ever before. She said she had been working with a therapist. Then said that she wanted me to know that this letter will be her asking for us to fight for our relationship. That she realized she doesn't want to dance on New Year's with anyone else but me. The following day she came back and we sat with a tea and she began reading her letter. She claimed that the first night she went out, the girl who hit on her was named E. She said that she had fantasized about her a lot and that she became almost obsessed with the idea of hooking up with her. She said that she had run into her again the next week, and that E said how bummed she is they couldn't give things a try. She said that the night she went for a movie night, she got drunk and texted E asking if she was out. E said yes. Zed said that she wrote that note for E, but never sent it, that again it was just the fantasy. She promised she just got so drunk she threw up on the couch and passed out. She told me all of the steps she was willing to take to heal us. That she didn't expect me to forgive her immediately but wanted a chance to show me she will fight for us with her actions and will be honest going forward. She asked to reconcile. We essentially did. She moved back in and we were back in the same bed together. We had a nice night and continued our dialogue. The following evening we continued to connect again and felt close to each other again. We fell asleep and I woke up in the middle of the night to an overwhelming sense that something is off. I looked at my phone and go to her IG. I looked at her followers and neither E or the other friend she was claiming to have a movie night with are her followers. I got very suspicious. I did the one thing I hate doing the most. I snooped. I went through her phone and find photos of her grinding on a guy the first night she disappeared without messaging. I go to her messages with him, and am inundated with flirtatious messages that go back weeks. Lots of hearts and photos. Memes I had sent to her that she then sent to him. Pictures of our cat. I find the day of the movie night and she told him she didn't have a debit card and asked if he would cook her dinner. I always cook and pay for most of our groceries. They planned a movie night together. After that night, she messaged him how the hardest thing is leaving your bed and you still owe me another movie. I confronted her and she fervently denied it. I told her I saw the messages and she said that he was just there but that nothing happened. I brought up that she said she was in his bed and she said that she got super drunk and threw up and so he put her in his bed and put a movie on but nothing happened. I called bullshit and she claimed he tried kissing her but she pushed him away and told him she had a boyfriend. Over the next couple hours, I kept calling bullshit and digging, and she kept trickle-truthing. She said they made out but that was it. Then that they did hand stuff but she didn't make him CM. Finally, I asked her if they used protection and she slowly shook her head yes. This broke me. But the conversation pressed on. She said he bullied her, made disrespectful and triggering comments to her, and that my calm and even-keeled demeanor didn't give her the ups and downs she was addicted to in relationships. She said his toxicity attracted her as it reminded her of her past relationships. She had a notes-up note with all the mean and ducked-up things he has said to her. It was strangely titled nice things A has said to me. She also made some very abusive comments trying to cut at my core. She said she doesn't like the way we have time, that I don't duck her hard enough. She tried to emasculate me as she knows how hard I've tried to find ways to satisfy her. How I have listened to everything she's ever requested and invested in every toy she ever wanted. She tried to make me feel it was my fault because I'm not good enough at time for her. She also admitted that throughout the month, she was trying to push me over the edge, to break me to the point in which I would end our relationship. She wanted me to be the bad guy, for me to be the one that leaves her. She wanted to absolve herself of the blame for her affair. Her letter asking for reconciliation was also a manipulation tactic. She wanted forgiveness for an affair that she didn't actually want to admit to. She thought that if it was just a crush on a girl instead of time with a guy, I wouldn't see it the same way. She knew I would be her ally, because I have always told her I am if that's what she needs. She used that against me? So of course we have broken up. We are done and at this point have nearly no contact. She's sent me messages with more lies, but I am learning not to engage. I am struggling to focus on anything, and fighting intrusive thoughts nearly constantly. I can't sleep or eat, and I am so far from my loved ones. I am in genuine shock and I don't think I have accepted the extent of the trauma I just endured. Yet I am still overwhelmed with worry for her. I am mad at myself, full of self-hatred. But I can't find it in my heart to extend that anger to her. Instead I am terrified that she genuinely doesn't have control and is engaging in a deep form of self-harm. I find myself wanting to help her get the help she needs, but I need to be focused on helping myself heal. I know I can't help her. I know I can't save her. What are my best, next steps? I am seeing a therapist and will do so for a long time, maybe forever. I am worried that this is fogging my judgment as I am making major life decisions. Do I continue to pursue this research funding? Do I just go to my family and get as far away from the trauma as possible? Please provide me with feedback and resources to help me move forward. My take: I'm such a nice guy. No, you're not. You're a doormat. Hopefully from all this you have realized to trust your initial gut reaction. This was extremely hard to read as you just continued to present yourself with a savior complex. Instead, what you portrayed was someone who is willing to tolerate anything as long as it helps present you as a genuinely good person, and maybe you are, but it will also make you a doormat. Learn a valuable lesson. You are ill-equipped and unprepared to handle people with trauma, if that is really true for her. Honestly, I don't see how you can believe anything she has ever said, but even after all of this, you are still trying to defend her actions as if that somehow makes you more sympathetic. FYI, she never manipulated you. She simply allowed you to manipulate yourself.